The phone buzzed once. Linda froze. She was standing in the long hallway, holding a silver tray with Park Ji-won's evening tea. The mansion was silent, the kind of silence that made every breath feel loud. She should not have looked down. She knew better. But the screen lit up anyway. I miss you. I can't stop thinking about last night. There was no name. Just a blank space where a name should be. Linda's heart jumped. Her fingers tightened around the phone. She slid it into her pocket too fast, her breath shallow. She told herself it was nothing. A mistake. A message meant for someone else. Then she felt it. The air changed. The hallway felt colder, heavier. Like something dangerous had just woken up. Park Ji-won stood at the end of the corridor. He had not made a sound. No footsteps. No warning. Just his tall figure, dressed in black, his sharp eyes locked on her like they had caught a lie in motion. His gaze dropped to her pocket. Who was that? He asked calmly. Linda swallowed. No one, sir. The phone buzzed again. This time, Park Ji-won saw it. His jaw tightened. The calm on his face cracked, just for a second. Enough to make her stomach twist. Take it out, he said. Linda hesitated. That hesitation was a mistake. Park Ji-won stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. Who, he said slowly, is sending you love texts? The mansion felt like it was holding its breath. And for the first time since she started working there, Linda realized something terrifying. She wasn't just afraid of losing her job. She was afraid of what it meant that he cared. This isn't a love story that starts with romance. It starts with suspicion. And a single message that changed the balance of power forever. Who really sent the texts? Was she a target, or a trap? And what happens when a mafia boss realizes the one person he tried to control is the only one who can destroy him? Stay with this story. Because nothing here ends the way you expect. Linda had worked in Park Ji-won's mansion for 3 years. She knew the rules. Do not speak unless spoken to. Do not ask questions. Do not look directly into his eyes for too long. Park Ji-won was not just her employer. He was a man everyone feared. Powerful. Rich. Untouchable. His name was whispered in low voices across the city, always followed by silence. Inside the mansion, everything was perfect and cold. White marble floors. Tall mirrors. Guards standing like statues. No laughter. No warmth. Only control. Linda blended into that world the way she had learned to all her life, quiet, careful, invisible. That was how she survived. Park Ji-won barely noticed her. Or so she thought. He noticed everything. The way she walked softly so no one heard her. The way she never complained, even when her hands shook from the cold. The way she always placed his tea on the table exactly the same way. He told himself it meant nothing. She was just the maid. But lately, something had changed. He found his eyes following her longer than they should. He noticed when she looked tired. When she smiled at the other staff. When she disappeared into her small room at night. And now, there were messages. Someone out there knew how to reach her. Someone who made her hide her phone. Someone who made her heart race. Park Ji-won hated that feeling in his chest. The tightness. The anger without a clear reason. He had built his life on control. No one took what belonged under his roof without his permission. And Linda lived under his roof. As he stared at her shaking hands, one thought burned through his mind. Whoever was texting her had crossed a line. And Park Ji-won never let that go unanswered. Park Ji-won did not raise his voice. That was worse. He turned and walked down the hallway, not looking back. "Follow me," he said, calm and sharp. It was not a request. Linda's legs felt weak, but she obeyed. 2 guards fell in behind them. She could feel their eyes on her back, heavy and curious. They had seen many things in this mansion. They had never seen this. G1 pushed open the doors to his private study. The room smelled of leather and cold air. A wall of glass looked out over the city, lights blinking far below like they belonged to another world. He moved behind his desk and sat, folding his hands slowly. "Stand there." Linda stood in the center of the room, small and exposed. Her heart pounded so loud she wondered if everyone could hear it. "Do you know who I am?" he asked. "Yes, sir," she whispered. "Say it." She swallowed. "You are Park Ji-won. And what does that mean?" His eyes did not blink. "It means, you are powerful." "That is not enough," he said. "It means I do not ask questions twice. It means lies do not survive in this house." He leaned forward. "So I will ask again. Who sent you those messages?" Linda shook her head. "I don't know." The room went silent. One of the guards shifted his weight. Another glanced at G1, uneasy. They had seen men beg in this room. They had seen deals made and lives ended. But this was different. G1 stood up. He walked around the desk, slow and measured, until he stopped in front of her. He did not touch her. He did not need to. "I can find out," he said quietly. "Every call. Every number. Every breath of the person who thinks they can reach what is mine." Linda's breath caught. "I don't belong to anyone," she said before she could stop herself. The words hung in the air. The guard stiffened. Ji-won's eyes darkened, not with rage, but with something sharper. "Careful," he said. "You are standing in my world." "I'm not lying," she said, her voice shaking. "I swear." For a long moment, he studied her face, searching for something. Fear. Deceit. Desire. Instead, he found truth. He stepped back. "Leave," he said. Linda turned quickly and walked out, her legs trembling. The guards watched her go, exchanging silent looks. As the doors closed, one of them spoke softly. "Boss, you okay?" Ji-won did not answer. He stared at the empty space where she had stood, his jaw tight, his thoughts racing. He had ruled an empire without hesitation. So why did her answer matter more than all of it? Linda did not sleep that night. She lay on her narrow bed in the staff quarters, staring at the ceiling while the mansion above her stayed silent and watchful. Every sound felt louder in the dark, the hum of power, the soft steps of guards changing shifts, the distant wind brushing the walls. Her phone rested beside her pillow. She did not touch it. Linda had learned long ago that sleep was a luxury for people who felt safe. She had not felt safe since she was a child. She grew up in a small apartment where the lights went out often and food ran out faster. Her mother worked until her hands shook. Her father left early and never came back. Linda learned to clean, cook, and stay quiet before she learned how to dream. School ended early. Life did not wait. When her mother got sick, Linda took any job she could. She smiled when people looked through her. She bowed her head when they spoke down to her. Being invisible kept her alive. That was when he appeared. He was kind in a way she did not trust at first. He talked about futures, about getting her out, about a life where her hands would not always be tired. He said her name like it mattered. "I'll come back for you," he promised one night, standing under a broken streetlight. "This isn't the end." She believed him. Then he vanished. No goodbye. No message. Just silence. Silence teaches you fast. Linda stopped waiting. She took the job at the mansion because it paid more than anything else. She told herself it was temporary. She told herself not to feel, not to hope, not to look up. And she had done well. Until the messages started. They came without a number. No name. Just words. I never forgot you. You are closer than you think. You're not as alone as you believe. She told herself it was a mistake. A wrong number. A cruel joke. But the words felt too familiar. Tonight, her phone buzzed softly. Linda froze. She stared at the screen, heart racing, then finally picked it up. One new message. Do you still trust me? Her hands began to shake. She thought of Park Ji-won's eyes. Cold. Sharp. Watching. She thought of the past she buried and the life she was trying to survive. She typed nothing. Across the mansion, Park Ji-won stood alone in his study, the city lights reflecting in the glass. He replayed the moment she said she didn't belong to anyone. It should not have mattered. But it did. Somewhere between memory and danger, two lives were moving toward the same truth. And neither of them knew if the threat was outside the mansion. Or already inside. Morning came quietly, but the mansion felt tense, like it was holding its breath. Linda worked with steady hands, polishing the long dining table while guards moved in silence around her. She kept her eyes down, but she could feel it, the weight of being watched. Park Ji-won sat at the far end of the room, reading reports on a tablet, his face calm and unreadable. Too calm. Linda, he said. Her heart jumped. She stepped forward at once. Yes, sir. He looked up slowly. His eyes met hers, sharp and focused, like he was already halfway inside her thoughts. I asked you something last night. She nodded. You did. You said the messages meant nothing. Linda swallowed. This was the moment. She felt it deep in her chest, like standing at the edge of a cliff. Yes, she said. They're nothing. It was a lie. Not a clean one. Not an easy one. But it was the only thing she could give. They're just spam, she added quickly. People send strange things all the time. Park Ji-won leaned back in his chair. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't smile. That was worse. You're lying, he said calmly. The room seemed to grow colder. Linda's fingers curled into her apron. She forced herself not to shake. I wouldn't dare lie to you. He stood up and walked toward her, each step slow and measured. Guards stiffened, watching closely. He stopped just inches away. You're protecting someone, he said. That much is clear. Linda's heart pounded so loud she was sure everyone could hear it. She thought of the past. Of promises. Of a name she hadn't spoken in years. If she told the truth, someone else would be hurt. If she lied, she might be. She lifted her chin. I don't know who sent them, she said. But they're not important. Please, let it go. For a moment, Park Ji-won said nothing. Then he stepped back. Very well, he said. Relief rushed through her so fast it almost made her weak. But it didn't last. He turned to the head of security. Find the sender, he ordered. Check every line. Every camera. Every person who's come near her. Linda's breath caught. And watch her closely, he added. If she lies again, I'll know. He walked away without another word. Linda stood frozen, her lie hanging in the air like thin ice. She had saved someone today. But she had also started something she might not survive. The change did not happen all at once. It crept in quietly, like a shadow stretching longer each day, twisting the mansion's walls into something colder, more suffocating. Park Ji-won began to summon Linda for the smallest reasons. A glass placed too close to the edge. A curtain not drawn straight enough. A pause before answering his call. Each mistake earned a cold look, a sharp word, or worse, silence. Silence from him was punishment. And silence in this house was louder than screams. Guards started appearing wherever Linda worked. Not to protect her, she realized with a chill, but to watch her. Their eyes followed her steps through the halls, the kitchen, and even along the narrow garden paths where she had once stolen a few moments of peace. She felt her freedom shrink with every glance. Every movement was measured. Every breath observed. One afternoon, she was late by less than 2 minutes. The gate had been slow to open, the snow slippery under her shoes. When she bowed to apologize, Park Ji-won didn't raise his voice. "You value your time more than mine?" he asked, calm, controlled, but sharp. "No, sir," she whispered, trying to steady her trembling hands. "Good," he replied, the corners of his mouth flat. "Then remember that everything you have belongs to my patients." That evening, her meal allowance was cut in half. The punishment wasn't just about food, it was a reminder of his control, of the invisible leash tightening around her life. Some days, he was cold and distant, treating her like air. Other days, his gaze burned into her, restless and dangerous, as if he were searching her face for answers she didn't know she held. Once, he asked casually, almost conversationally, "Did anyone speak to you today?" "No, sir," she replied, heart pounding. "Anyone look at you?" I don't know," she stammered. His hand paused mid-motion. Slowly, he looked up. "You will know," he said. "And you will tell me." Linda felt a twist in her chest, equal parts fear and fascination. She wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The mansion walls pressed closer, shadowed corridors trapping her with a man whose calm was more terrifying than any outburst. Late that night, she passed his study and saw the door slightly open. Inside, Park Ji-won stood alone, staring at her phone on the desk. He wasn't angry, he looked troubled. Almost lost. Her pulse raced. She stepped back quietly, heart thundering, unable to read the storm behind his eyes. The next morning, a staff member was removed from duty for asking unnecessary questions. Linda knew it was about her. She felt the weight settle on her shoulders like snow in winter, cold, heavy, and impossible to ignore. This was no longer about rules. It was personal. Park Ji-won didn't know how to share what he wanted. He only knew how to take control when something scared him. And whatever those messages had awakened inside him, whatever that flicker of jealousy, possessiveness, and fear was, it was growing darker by the day. Linda wondered, a cold shiver running down her spine, whether his jealousy came from power, or from the terrifying thought of losing something he had never planned to need. Linda's hands shook as she stacked the papers on the kitchen counter. Each document, each note, each tiny scrap she had collected over the past few days seemed innocent on its own, but together, they formed a picture she wasn't ready to see. The texts weren't random. Someone inside the mansion had been watching her. Someone had been waiting for the perfect moment to use her against Park Ji-won. The realization hit like ice water. Every step she had taken, every glance she had shared with him, every late night she had spent in the mansion now felt like a trap. She glanced around the kitchen. The shadows seemed thicker than usual, as if the walls themselves were listening. Guards passed by, silent and alert, but she couldn't shake the feeling that one of them, or someone even closer, was orchestrating everything. Park Ji-won appeared behind her without a sound. Linda jumped, dropping a folder onto the counter. His eyes, dark and unreadable, scanned the papers she had gathered. He didn't speak. He only looked, and the weight of his gaze pressed down on her chest, making it hard to breathe. "This was meant for me," he said finally, his voice low, controlled. "And yet, it came through you." Linda's throat went dry. I didn't know," she stammered. "I swear." He stepped closer, the distance between them shrinking, and she could see the storm in his obsidian eyes. "No one touches my house, my people, or you. No one." His jaw tightened. "Someone wanted to make you a weapon against me. And they almost succeeded." Linda swallowed hard. "But, why me? Why would someone use me like this?" Park Ji-won's expression softened just slightly, not enough to comfort, but enough to terrify. "Because you are important. That's why. And because I care whether you live or die, even when I shouldn't." The words chilled her, but not entirely. They carried an edge she couldn't ignore, protection and obsession, fear and desire, all tangled together in the dangerous rhythm of his mind. Suddenly, a soft knock at the door broke the tension. A guard entered, holding a small envelope. Park Ji-won snatched it and tore it open. Inside were photos of Linda, taken when she thought no one was watching, accompanied by a message: "Your loyalty will be tested. Fail, and everything ends." Linda's heart pounded. The betrayal wasn't subtle, it was calculated, cold, and meant to scare her. The question that had been creeping into her mind now screamed, was this planned from the start? Had she been targeted the moment she entered this house? Park Ji-won's eyes flicked to hers, sharp and dangerous. "If anyone, dared to harm you, I will destroy them. But first, we find out who's behind this." Linda nodded, trembling. She knew survival wasn't just about hiding or obeying anymore. She had to be smart, careful, and fast. Trust had become a luxury she couldn't afford. And as Park Ji-won stepped back, closing the distance between her and the shadows of the mansion, Linda realized the stakes had changed. This wasn't just about jealousy anymore. This was about life, loyalty, and the deadly game being played inside the walls she thought were safe. Someone inside had set the trap. And now, she was the key to unraveling it. Linda's hands trembled as she held the envelope, the photos, and the threats all spread out before her. She had been holding it in, swallowing the fear, the panic, the guilt, pretending she could carry it alone. But the weight of the lies and half-truths was crushing her. She couldn't keep pretending, not with Park Ji-won watching her every move, his jealousy sharp enough to cut through steel. She took a deep breath, her heart hammering. "I need to tell you everything," she whispered, almost to herself. The words felt heavy, dangerous, yet freeing. He turned slowly, his dark eyes narrowing, reading her like a book he already thought he had mastered. "Everything?" His voice was calm, but the tension in the air made it clear that calm could snap like glass. Linda nodded, swallowing back tears she refused to show. "The texts, the messages, someone is trying to use me. I didn't want to involve you. I didn't want to make your life harder. But I lied before, and it only made things worse." Her voice shook, but she forced herself to continue. "I was afraid they'd hurt me, or him. I didn't know who to trust." Park Ji-won stepped closer, the cold control in his stance making her feel small and exposed, but strangely safe at the same time. "Do you know what you did?" he asked quietly, almost painfully. "Your fear, your secrecy, it could have destroyed the one innocent thing I have left." Linda flinched. "I didn't mean to. I wanted to protect him, and I thought, maybe I could handle it alone." His jaw tightened, and for a moment, the room seemed to shrink under the weight of his gaze. Then, unexpectedly, he reached out, a hand resting briefly on her shoulder. "Not to punish, but to steady. You've been brave, more than anyone should be. But I almost let my jealousy make me blind. Blind to what mattered most. I almost lost you, and him. Linda looked up, tears pricking her eyes, and for the first time, she felt the fragile bond between them. Fear, tension, and respect tangled together, sharper than any weapon in the mansion. Before she could respond, a sharp sound echoed from the hallway, a soft, deliberate click that froze them both. Park Ji-won's eyes darkened instantly, a storm raging behind the calm mask he wore. They've made their move, he whispered, his voice low, dangerous, like a blade unsheathing. Linda's heart raced, and she instinctively stepped closer to him, clutching the folder and envelope to her chest. The weight of truth had been released, but it had only opened the door to a greater danger. Someone inside the mansion had planned this all along, and now, with her confession out in the open, the game was moving faster than either of them could control. Park Ji-won's hand tightened briefly on hers, not in comfort, but in silent warning. Stay close. One mistake now, and everything ends. The enemy was no longer waiting in the shadows. They had struck. And in that frozen, tense moment, Linda understood that survival, trust, and loyalty were no longer choices, they were the only way forward. Linda's heart raced as she moved through the dim hallway, clutching the folder with trembling hands. The mansion felt different, too quiet, too deliberate. Every shadow seemed to stretch, every step echoing like a warning. Park Ji-won had told her to stay close, but when the sharp metallic click rang out behind her, she froze. Before she could react, strong hands grabbed her from both sides. Panic surged as she struggled, but it was useless. The attackers were fast, precise, and silent. A cloth pressed against her face, and the world blurred. Darkness swallowed her, the last thing she saw was the cold, calculating gaze of Park Ji-won before she collapsed into unconsciousness. When Linda opened her eyes, she was in a narrow, windowless room. Her arms were tied, and fear coiled in her chest like a living thing. The air was thick and musty, and every sound outside the door made her flinch. Her mind raced. Who had done this? How had they found her? And most terrifying, why did it feel like the whole mansion was holding its breath? Outside, Park Ji-won's voice echoed faintly through the door, cold and deadly. You made a mistake taking her, he said, low, controlled, but threaded with something that made even the strongest guards uneasy. She is mine to protect, and if you hurt her, his words trailed, but the threat was clear. The attackers laughed softly from the shadows, underestimating him. They didn't know the storm they had awakened. In the grand study, Ji-won's posture was rigid, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to strike. His empire, the vast network of influence, wealth, and fear he had built, was flashing in his mind. Every decision, every ally, every deal he had made could crumble if he acted wrong. And yet, Linda's face, fragile and defiant even in danger, refused to leave his thoughts. His chest tightened, the world narrowing to a single point of choice, power or her life. He paced slowly, each step a quiet drum of fury and calculation. The guards were tense, waiting for his orders, but they had never seen him like this, so human, so unrelenting, so dangerously close to losing control. Prepare the car, he finally said, his voice sharp, leaving no room for hesitation. We're going to negotiate, or destroy anyone who thinks they can take her from me. Back in the dark room, Linda pressed herself against the cold wall, trying to keep her fear at bay. She could feel the energy shift, the quiet before a storm, and she knew with a sickening certainty that her fate was tied to him, and to the decisions he would make in the next minutes. Outside the mansion, snow began to fall again, muting every sound, hiding every movement. But no amount of silence could mask the storm of wrath, obsession, and desperation that was about to be unleashed. And in that frozen, tense moment, the unspoken question hung in the air: would Park Ji-won sacrifice everything he had built to save the one person who mattered more than his empire? Park Ji-won's black coat brushed the marble floor as he walked through the silent halls of the mansion. Every guard had been ordered to stay behind. No weapons, no reinforcements, just him, and the storm of his own decision pressing on his chest. The snow outside fell heavier now, each flake a reminder of the world frozen around him, but nothing mattered except the trap he was about to face. He knew the risks. Every corner could hide a blade, every shadow a sniper. Every heartbeat told him he was walking into danger alone. But Linda's face, pale and frightened in the dim memory of that room, burned in his mind. He would not let her fear, her trust, or her life be a bargaining chip for anyone. The corridor ended in a heavy steel door. His hand rested on it for a moment, the cold metal biting, but he didn't hesitate. He opened it and stepped inside. The room was dimly lit, just enough to catch the glint of knives and the silhouettes of his enemies. They smiled, confident, assuming their trap was perfect. Ji-won raised his head, eyes calm but lethal. "Linda is not part of your game," he said, his voice low, controlled, but carrying the weight of ice and fire. They laughed, circling him, weapons raised, underestimating the danger in a man who seemed unarmed. Linda, tied to a chair in the corner, looked up. Her eyes widened, both terrified and incredulous. "Ji-won, no," she whispered, but he didn't falter. Every instinct screamed to strike first, to take control by force. But he stayed still, letting his presence do the work. His calm radiated through the room like an unbroken storm. His enemy's confidence wavered, just slightly, enough for the tension to snap like a live wire. "You think a few knives and bullets change what matters?" he asked, stepping forward slowly, hands empty, but every movement a silent threat. "She is mine. Her life is mine to protect." One of the attackers lunged, and the room erupted into chaos. Ji-won moved like shadow and storm combined. Each dodge, each precise step, was guided not by training alone, but by the fire in his chest, love, fury, obsession. Even unarmed, he was untouchable, untamed, and terrifying. Linda's breath hitched as she watched him. Every strike he made, every move he executed, spoke volumes more than words ever could. He had risked everything, his empire, his safety, his control, for her. And in that moment, it became clear, the weakness in his chest was also the weapon in his hands. The last attacker fell, defeated, and silence returned. Ji-won straightened, his gaze finally meeting Linda's. "You are safe," he said, and for the first time, his voice was soft, almost human. But in his eyes burned the unmistakable truth: love had become his strength, his shield, and the reason no one could challenge him. And as he stepped toward her, unbroken, the question lingered in the air: was love his weakness, or the deadliest weapon he had ever wielded? The mansion was quiet, almost too quiet. Linda's heart still raced from the chaos of the trap, but her eyes were sharp now, scanning every shadow. Park Ji-won stood nearby, his coat rumpled, hair slightly disheveled, yet every inch of him still radiated the power that had frozen men in their tracks. But tonight, there was something new in his gaze, a vulnerability he rarely allowed anyone to see. The defeated enemies had been tied and disarmed, sitting silently in the grand hall, eyes wide with fear. Ji-won walked past them, calm but relentless, his steps echoing off the marble floors. "You thought she was just a pawn," he said quietly, voice low and deadly, "but you underestimated me." He gestured toward Linda, and one of the captives trembled. "These messages you sent her, the so-called love notes, were never meant to lure her. They were meant to protect her. Someone knew she was in danger, and they tried to keep her alive without her knowing it." Linda blinked, disbelief mixing with relief. "All this time. I thought." Ji-won's gaze softened, just slightly, but still carried the weight of authority. "You weren't being courted. You were being watched over. And he paused, the words caught between pride and confession, "I almost let my jealousy destroy that." I almost let you pay the price for my own obsession. The guard stepped forward, taking the captives away, and Linda felt a shiver run down her spine. For the first time, she saw him not as a cold, untouchable mafia boss, but as a man who could feel fear, fury, and regret in equal measure. He had been willing to risk everything, his reputation, his life, his empire, for her safety. She swallowed hard, her mind racing. He had snapped, yes, but he had also saved her. Protected her. Every action he had taken, the anger, the jealousy, the fury, was proof of something deeper than control. It was proof that she mattered, in a way she had never allowed herself to hope. Ji-won stepped closer, the fire in his eyes cooling into something more human, more fragile. Do you understand now? He asked softly, the calm beneath his power almost terrifying in its honesty. Why every glance, every command, every punishment was about more than control? Because your life mattered more than anything else I own. Linda's breath caught. She had seen men crushed by his authority, women terrified into silence, but she had never seen him break like this. And yet, there was no mockery, no manipulation, only raw truth. I understand, she whispered, voice trembling, tears threatening to spill. I see it now. For a long moment, they simply stood there, Maid and Mafia boss, predator and protector, two worlds colliding in the silent, gleaming halls of power. And in that moment, one question lingered in the air, heavy and dangerous: what happens to a maid who sees a Mafia boss break? The answer, for now, would have to wait. The mansion was quiet now, the storm outside finally fading into soft whispers of wind against the tall windows. Linda stood in the grand hall, her hands folded in front of her, heart still pounding from the chaos that had passed. Park Ji-won approached, each step deliberate, yet lighter somehow than before. The fire in his eyes was still there, but it no longer burned with jealousy or rage, it was something warmer, steadier, and terrifyingly honest. He stopped a few feet from her, his coat brushing the marble floor. For the first time, he spoke without authority, without command. Linda, he said, voice low but sincere, you don't have to stay here because I say so. You don't belong to me. You were never a possession, never a prisoner. Her breath caught. She had survived storms, betrayal, danger, and the weight of his obsession, but hearing those words made her chest ache with something entirely new, hope. She began, but Ji-won held up a hand, silencing her gently. You have a choice, he continued, eyes locking onto hers, steady and patient. You can leave this place, leave me, leave everything behind, or you can stay. Stay with me, not because you're bound, not because you owe me anything, but because you want to. Because your heart chooses it. Time seemed to slow. Linda felt the weight of every night spent cleaning halls, dodging his unpredictable moods, surviving threats she never imagined. And yet, in that quiet moment, she realized that all the fear, all the chaos, all the danger had brought them here, to a place neither of them could have predicted. She looked at him, the man who had controlled empires, who had ruled with ice and shadow, who had broken and rebuilt himself before her eyes. And she saw him as he truly was, flawed, human, capable of rage and tenderness, danger and love. Slowly, she took a step closer. I choose to stay, she whispered, voice trembling but sure. Not because I have to. Not because I'm afraid. Because I want to be here, with you. A shadow of relief passed over Ji-won's face, and for the first time, he smiled, not a commanding smile, not a predator's grin, but a soft, genuine smile that reached his eyes. He reached out, and Linda's hand found his, fingers intertwining naturally, without chains, without fear. The mansion that had once felt cold, imposing, and threatening now seemed different. The walls, the marble, the shadows, all of it softened in the warmth that passed between them. They stood together, side by side, not master and maid, not boss and servant, but something far rarer, equals, hearts exposed, choices shared. Outside, the city carried on in its endless chaos. Inside, the world had shrunk to this moment. Love without chains. Trust without fear. A life no longer ruled by control, but by the quiet, fierce decision to be together. And in the silence that followed, Linda finally felt it, freedom, safety, and a love that had nothing to hold it back.